Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Dr. Glenn is a clinical psychologist and former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leaving the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Before we get started, if you haven't downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
I'm here with a very nice man named Kevin, who's agreed to let me record his story so you can benefit from his experience and strength and wisdom and hope, as well as his trials and tribulations and stumbles and falls. Right, Kevin?
You bet.
Tell me your story, just kind of in brief. What was it like before you got to us and what happened in the program? Tell me the whole thing.
Been overweight for as long as I can possibly remember. In my childhood, I was a little bit pudgy. I was one of those boys who, during adolescence, put on some extra fat. I wasn't an overeater or binger in my adolescence or anything like that, but that struggle with weight goes way back till maybe I was age 12. I was someone who was not really a binger, but generally overeating and out of shape and did not really feel like I belonged in the typical male culture. In school with sports, because I was overweight, I couldn't really compete in athletics, although I enjoyed them. So by the time I was in high school, being overweight was something that defined me. Had lots of shame, lots of teasing, that kind of thing. In my adult life, overeating became more of a habit. I definitely have struggled with it. I'm 55, so I've struggled with it for 40 years, maybe. 40 years of up and down. Like so many people that I've heard on your podcast, I've tried every diet, Atkins diet and low-carb diets, and I tried more recently working with things as varied as Janine Roth's intuitive eating, all the way to Bright Line eating and Overeaters Anonymous. I've been in therapy for 20 years with a great therapist. And I've lost weight. I've lost 80 pounds deliberately, probably 4 times in my life. And I've lost another 75, 80 pounds twice during my life when I wasn't even trying.
What was your high weight?
My highest weight was 310 pounds. I really didn't want to accept the word binge. That was the moment for me that really made a difference, because I admitted to myself that really I was a binge eater. I thought I was an emotional eater. I didn't really see myself as someone who was binging, but I admitted that to myself and then started looking for resources around binge eating, and the program came up. I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, and so I really enjoyed doing the workbook and had about 30 days binge-free all the way through the summer, and that felt fantastic. And then,
as a result of the workbook?
Yep, as a result of the workbook, and that felt fantastic. And then I went on a business trip consulting, and I got sick on the road, and then allowed that to start my overeating again. And then I had 30 days of binging. So 30 days without a binge, and then 30 days of binging. And I knew the intensive program was something I wanted to do. So I joined that in September. And now I've been 2 months with one significant binge. And I'm really glad for that binge, because that really taught me something too. So the intensive program has been very, very helpful to me.
This is 2 months as opposed to 1 month, but how do you know this is the thing for you that's going to do it? I have full faith and trust in our program, and I believe that it is, but You've been up and down a bunch of times, and you've tried a whole bunch of things. What is it that's different that makes you feel more secure that this is a permanent fix?
Well, for so much of that roller coaster ride, it was about what to eat. The latter part of that roller coaster ride, it was about how to eat. But never during that entire journey did I really focus on my thinking. And that has made the difference. Suddenly, it made so much sense to me, because even before I found your program, I believed these things. I believed that my thoughts were just thoughts. In sort of a Buddhist way, I could watch my thoughts. I'm a meditator. So I knew that intuitively, or from lots of years of practice, that watching my thoughts was important. this is the first time I encountered something that really helped me focus on the thoughts. And for me, I'm an imaginative person. I like to be creative in different ways. And for me, using that concept of thought separation, but combining that with a metaphor, I call mine the Goblin. And using that metaphor made that separation from the goblin even easier. And that made all the sense in the world to me. So for the first time, I don't feel like, oh, I'm on a good eating plan that's helping me lose weight. I feel like, no, I understand how to deal with that goblin. I understand how to separate my thoughts, how to watch them and not react to my thoughts.
Can you give us an example of what you're able to do now that you couldn't do before? People really like specifics if you're open to it.
That's fine. Absolutely happy to do that. I'm a college professor. I've got a long commute to campus. My commute home from campus in the past had been studded with stops to convenience stores to buy food. I just drove home yesterday from campus and I drove past those places. None of them pulled me in except for one. And I had that thought, I could see the thought, let's go in and get some food here. It was just a habitual response at that point because I had rewarded myself so many times at that place that it was habitual when you drive past it to go do that again. But this time I could see the thought and say to myself, there it is, there's the goblin again. That was all I needed. Just to recognize that it was the goblin speaking to me, drove right past, no issue whatsoever.
I don't want that thing, the goblin wants it.
That's right.
That's not me, that's my goblin.
That's the goblin talking.
Yeah.
It's like hearing a police siren go by. Oh, I know what that is. I know what that sound is. I'm not having a battle. I'm not having a war with myself. Oh, should I stop? No one will know. I'll keep it secret. I'll hide the wrappers, that kind of stuff. No.
I still remember the first time I ever had that experience. I was standing right in front of a chocolate sea salt and almond bar. That was always my nemesis. And I thought, wait a minute, that's not me, that's my pig. My pig wants that. That's pig slop. I don't need pig slop. And I couldn't believe it was that easy. I couldn't believe I could walk away just with that little stupid phrase.
I think I know the exact chocolate bar you're even talking about.
Oh, no.
No. That is, no. Don't worry about it. That's what it's like. I can see it. I can also tell myself, hey, watch out. Watch out. The goblin's going to be speaking soon. Or the goblin's coming. Just be on the lookout. In the past 60 days where I felt so good and so comfortable that I kind of let my guard down and had to remind myself, hey, no, wait a minute now. This is when the goblin's coming back. Watch out for it.
What happened when you had the binge?
I was messing with my food rules. In my food rules, I have a definition of a meal is a 1 hour period. And I was trying to put more food in that 1 hour period, as much food as I could, and still calling it, well, it's still within the lunch hour, so you can still have some more. That was within my rules. I didn't have a rule against it, but I knew what was going on. It was one night when I did that and I went outside my rules and ate some flour, some food with flour in it. No flour, no sugar is part of my plan. So it wasn't a massive binge, but it was pretty direct. I ate a good quantity of that food and I went through the recovery process that was given to us in the intensive program. I'm just so grateful for that binge because I walked through the recovery process and I spent hours on it. I know you don't have to spend hours on it, but I spent hours digging into it and having some new insights. And now that I've been through the process once and lived through it with not a really serious binge, I now have that tool in the toolbox. That has been fantastic.
What did you learn? If you summarized what you learned from the recovery process?
Yeah. Several things. There were things about my rules that I wanted to adjust. Those were kind of minor things. But I came to this point where I understood that part of why I overeat is because there's something about my current situation that I think should be different. I know this sounds very vague. I'm sitting there at home. I'm all alone. My wife is out working or something, and I'm not sure what to do with myself. I'm bored. There's something about that reality that I don't like. So I want to get food to sort of entertain myself. I'm not experiencing some kind of harsh emotion that I want to cover up or something like that, but I'm there dissatisfied with what's right in front of me.
Is it for entertainment or control?
It feels like entertainment.
Okay.
And because of that recovery process, I'm now saying to myself, when I have that feeling, what's so bad about reality? And I look around and I'm in my house in the woods. I'm surrounded by all kinds of interesting things to do. I have a happy life. I have two wonderful sons. And like, there's so much to be grateful for. And it's because I'm just asking myself, what's so bad about reality? No, reality is actually pretty good. There's not this drive to entertain myself.
That's a beautiful example of the goblin manufacturing misery.
Yes.
Mhm.
I was not experiencing misery, but the goblin wants that there. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And then that manufacturing process gets reinforced by the binge, if you're not careful. And then you really start to think that you are miserable. And people are shocked when they stop binging to say, I've got a pretty good life. It's not the roller coaster that I felt like I was on when I was binging and recovering and binging and recovering and having those 18-minute highs and 48-hour lows. But life ain't so bad.
Yeah, there's so much to be grateful for. And because I'm not overeating, I can actually experience it.
So the recovery worksheet and the recovery process and going through that in the program was helpful to you.
Yeah.
What about the accountability? What about the Q&A calls? What about the rest of the program? Did you make use of it or you didn't need to?
I would say the other great tool that really worked well for me was the real-time refutation. Actually, the program asked me to do this on a daily basis, and I didn't always feel like I had a refutation to do, but I did it anyway. And that practice, just like practicing with the recovery process, now that puts the tool in my toolbox. Now I've got that. And anytime I'm feeling shaky, I start going back to that, doing a real-time a refutation every day. Even if I don't have one that's happening in real time, I'll make something up. And again, that just sharpens my awareness of what's going on, and it makes the goblin's squeals really, really clear to me. So that was a huge tool. In terms of the Q&A calls, I did join in on those. I tried to do that at least once a week, and I found them useful and interesting. I did participate in some, for sure. I also have been listening to the podcast on my commutes, and those also have a similar feel to some of the Q&A calls. So all of that together was reinforcing.
Would you be willing to share one or two of your favorite refutations? People tell me they get a lot out of the calls where people share them.
Yeah, I'm pretty angry at my goblin. That was something I'd learned too. That was very surprising to me, how much anger I had to express at this goblin. One that I really had to work on quite a bit was the squeal that said, hey, you're alone right now. Now's the time. Nobody's going to see this. Nobody's going to know. That's a big one. You know, that's the secret eating. That's lying to my wife and lying to myself. And that's a big one. And my reputation around that, it slowly developed. At first, it was, I can hear you. Hey, I'm going to know. I'm the one who's going to feel shame afterwards because I'm going to know I did that. That is completely ridiculous that you're saying to me, Goblin, no one will know. I'm going to know.
And I'm someone, right?
And I'm someone, I'm going to feel the pain and the shame afterwards. So that's all that really matters. I'm the one who knows. And that's why I'm not going to let you do this. That's why it's not going to happen, Goblin, because I want to be in charge, not you.
Beautiful. There's a series of studies which look at people's ability to tolerate discomfort. The original studies are done with ice buckets. They ask people to put their hands in the ice bucket and keep them there as long as they can. And if you haven't done that, that hurts after just a little while. Our ability to tolerate discomfort is a good part of what gets us through the extinction curve. We just did a whole podcast on the extinction burst and how when you withdraw the binge as a reinforcer for the cravings first go through a honeymoon period where you hardly experience them. And then something like 4 to 7 days later, there's a real burst. But the point is that when you go through that extinction burst, which is like a child having a temper tantrum, you have to be able to tolerate that discomfort. And part of tolerating the discomfort involves knowing that it's a predictable burst and it goes away over time. I'm glad that you figured that out.
And I've gotten advice through the program that it's okay to be angry. I was surprised at how much anger that was. But I also realized that anger, for me, usually covers up a deeper, more base emotion like shame. I'm ashamed of what I've done and realizing that all of what I've created in my weight, those are all from choices I've made. There's no one else to blame. I may be ashamed of what I did, but I'm really proud of what I'm doing now. So glad that I'm back in charge.
And you can focus on your abilities and your capacity for presence and productivity, which is probably supercharged compared to the average person who didn't engage in habitual stupidity with food. I hope I'm not insulting you, but I'm.
Oh, I think habitual stupidity is a wonderful way to capture this.
That's what I did. It was Nothing more and nothing less. There are all kinds of emotions that are tied to it, but not causal of it. The bottom line is that the decisions were habitual stupidity. I could focus on that and let the pig wear me down, or the goblin, or I could focus on the fact that given that I went through that and was forced to aggressively focus my time and energy on developing these tools and exercising these tools and being so much more present than I ever would have been if I never went through that, I have a beautiful life. I've got so much capacity in front of me. I could do so much more. I believe that I will make up for the wasted decades in spades. That's what you want to focus on. It's the same as committing with perfection and forgiving yourself with dignity. We have to commit with perfection to the future and forgive ourselves with dignity about the past. I could wallow in the past. I wasted a lot of years. I'm 57 years old now. Imagine if I knew what I knew now when I was 37 years old. What else should I have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Two things I can think of. One is that I was glad for the opportunity to talk to you because I think the experience of men losing weight might be different for women. And I feel an expectation from the dominant culture that men are supposed to have this all under control. So there are plenty of overweight men out there, but I don't find us talking to each other about what to do and about this and why you are eating the way you are. And
Interesting.
I don't know what it is that I really want to say about that, but there's a loneliness I've felt around connecting with other men. When you're overweight and you don't participate in sports coming up as a kid, you lose out on this big part of male culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's positive that can bring a sense of belonging. I'm sure, women experience this loneliness too, but it's something that I think is rare. And I know that there are some men in the program, and I hope more men listen to your podcast and see that this is a way that could really, really make a difference for them.
I agree with you. It's a different experience.
One more quote for you. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. This is from Viktor Frankl. This is on my desk, and I've had it for years, so I'm so glad to share it with you. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom.
I love it. And that's the essence of character development. Finding that space between stimulus and response, which requires that we separate our constructive from destructive thoughts, and isolating your destructive thoughts in a fictitious entity and cultivating your anger and superiority over that destructive entity is one of the best ways that I've ever found to do that. Not to nurture it and love yourself then, but to aggressively separate from it.
That is the essence of this program for me. That's what it really comes down to, right there.
Me too. It's nice to talk to you, Kevin.
Talk to you. Bye-bye.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. If you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.